The Rookie is one of my favorite shows of all time, and I love taking every opportunity I get to glaze the show, but I'm not gonna lie and say that it's perfect. So today, I'm gonna switch things up and talk about everything I personally do not like about The Rookie and explain why I feel this way. And stay tuned, because some of these may be some pretty hot takes. The first thing I want to talk about, or I guess the first person I want to talk about, is Monica Stevens and how much I loathe her storyline. Look, I thought Monica was an interesting addition to the show when she was first introduced, being the crooked lawyer that gave Elijah whatever he wanted when Wesley couldn't. And then adding the fact that she was Wesley's ex-fiance, I actually really liked it. But then when Elijah was defeated and she moved on to being a centimillionaire criminal mastermind, I started to lose my patience with her. Every episode that passed, her storyline just got more and more ridiculous to the point where it wasn't even intriguing anymore. And now we're heading into season 8, and not only is she still here, but she has immunity? How in the world is this plot ever going to be solved? She's basically become the ruler of the world when it comes to the show, and I hate this so much. I'm hoping that she's killed off within the first couple episodes of the new season, because if not, I'm gonna lose a lot of interest in what's going on in the main plot of the show. The next thing I want to talk about that I really dislike about the show is how they've really started to neglect the other couples of the show for Chenford. I am a massive Lopez fan, and I have been ever since I first started watching the show. Watching them grow not only as a couple, but also as individuals was amazing to see, and I became more glued to their story. But as Chenford started to form, Lopez, along with every other couple, started being pushed towards the sidelines to show Tim and Lucy instead. Listen, I am not a Chenford hater, and I am not trying to say that they shouldn't be a thing, but their relationship has caused the showrunners to neglect the rest. When was the last time we really got to see growth come from Nyla and James' relationship? What about Lopez? Bailey and Nolan haven't been neglected as much, but I'm pretty sure that is because it involves Nolan, who's the main character of the whole show. But the other two couples especially have been neglected to shine a light on Tim and Lucy instead. I have a couple other gripes with Chenford, but we'll get back to those later. Let's move on to the third thing that I dislike about the show, and that is that I feel like the terrible timeline breaks the immersion of the show for me. Maybe I'm taking the show a little too seriously when I complain about this, but I think there's way too many inconsistencies involving the timeline that just make me more confused than anything else. One of my biggest gripes with the timeline involves ages, since there's some age discrepancies that literally break the lore of some characters. Let me bring up the biggest examples, which are John and Henry Nolan, as well as the age difference between the two. When the show began, John Nolan was said to be a 45-year-old man, and it's also mentioned that his son, Henry, was born when he was 20 years old. But this gets annihilated as soon as Henry is introduced, as when we meet him in season 1, he is 20 years old. This is an issue because he's supposed to be 25 at this time, but in the matter of half a season, they already break the timeline. Okay, whatever. They got an age wrong. Not a big deal. But then they decide to change the age of Henry between episodes. In one episode, he's 20 years old. In the next episode, he's 19 years old. And then he's 20 again after that. How does any of that make any sense at all? Now back to John. Like I mentioned earlier, he's supposed to be 45 years old in the pilot, which takes place in 2018. But now in season 7, he's 49 years old, despite it taking place in 2025. This means he has aged 4 years within the last 7 years in the show. I think I've rambled enough about ages, so let me just talk about another timeline issue that really grinds my gears. We need to talk about Selena Juarez and the tragedy that is her timeline. She is introduced in season 5 of the show, which takes place in 2021 according to the timeline. But according to season 6, it jumps all the way to 2024. And like I mentioned earlier, season 7 takes place in 2025. Why is this all important? Because this would imply that Selena Juarez has been a rookie for 3 to 4 years rather than the 12 months it usually takes. Having a rookie stay a rookie for multiple seasons isn't a novel concept though, since they did this back in seasons 1 to 3 with John, Lucy, and Jackson. But the difference with them is that those seasons took place over the span of the same 13-month period. Now that they have this massive time jump between the seasons, it makes her probationary period absolutely ridiculous. And I'm hoping they don't do the same thing with Miles. Okay, I'm sure you don't want me complaining about the timeline anymore, so I'm just gonna move on. Let's go back to Chenford. I have to talk about Chenford and how I heavily dislike the writing of the couple, as well as the writing of their story. Like I said earlier, I do not hate Chenford as a concept, nor either of the characters. I actually really like both Tim and Lucy, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice some negative changes in their characters and storylines that came from Chenford being introduced. Earlier on in the show's run, Tim was a very rigid, strict TO that was emotionally guarded and had his walls up. This was such a good contrast when interacting with everyone else, especially with Lucy, who needed that type of figure during her training. His rigidness also was super funny when interacting with characters like Lopez, who would just get on his nerves.
I got your back, boo.
But when he got with Lucy, and even after the relationship, no matter how hard he tried with Miles and others, that tough guy persona just wasn't the same anymore since he started to soften up. This personality change I honestly don't mind as much, since it's less one-dimensional and makes him more of a dynamic character. But where I really don't like the personality changes with Chenford is the changes with Lucy. It feels like after Lucy and Tim got together, Lucy just kind of became Tim's second half, and the show was taking away her personal agency. She worked so hard during the first half of the show and had to overcome so much, but it feels like it's all being overshadowed with Chenford. This is all too common in shows, where the woman of a ship will get overshadowed by the relationship rather than being known for her own accomplishments. And I think that Lucy deserves way better than that, as she's one of the best characters in the whole show. Now to talk about how they're writing Chenford's story. I hate what they're doing with Chenford right now. Everything they did during season 7 really grinded my gears, because instead of giving them any actual development and building on their story, they would just tease the audience with little snippets to get them hyped up and ready to watch the next episode. Yet as episodes passed, nothing of actual substance ever actually happened. The biggest example of this was in season 7, episode 15, A Deadly Secret. Remember how they were locked down in the hospital and were talking about baby names in their relationship? I do. Do you remember what this information ended up leading to? I don't. Oh wait, it didn't lead to anything. That is my gripe. They're writing Chenford stuff just to keep the audience on their toes on whether they'll get back together or not, and then never actually give us anything. I get Chenford being in the show, but Alexi, please just give us something of substance for once. Alright, I feel like I've said enough about Chenford, so I'm just going to move on to the next thing that I really don't like about the show. This one may be more popular than others in this video, but I'm going to say it anyway. The more that I rewatch The Rookie for these videos, the more I dislike Bailey, her background, her personality, and her relationship with Nolan as a whole. And each one of these things is for different reasons. I hate how she basically can do anything. She isn't just part of the LAFD, she is the LAFD. She is everywhere. Do they need a paramedic? Bailey. Do they need a firefighter? Bailey. Do they need a dancer? Bailey, I guess. I don't understand why she needs to have everything under her belt. She is fine as just a firefighter, maybe with some military experience under her belt. Oh wait, she's a lieutenant in the reserves too. I don't get why they had her do so much. Now onto her personality. I think that she is so flat. The way that she talks to people, including Nolan, just feels forced and has no genuinity attached to it. I remember back in my tier list video, I mentioned that I think Nolan and Bailey are good together, but the more that I watch them, the more I disagree with my previous opinion. They have pretty much no chemistry at all. And what makes it even worse is that Nolan dated more than one woman that would have been much better suited for him. By far, Grace Sawyer would have been the best match with Nolan. I thought they had amazing chemistry, and when I first watched the show, I thought they would have been endgame. That is until the show decided to call it quits, for some reason. I never really understood why they broke Nolan and her up, but I think it was a disservice to John's story. And if they didn't turn Jessica into some weird psycho who killed a suspect without any lethal force sent her way, she could have been a good match for Nolan too. But then they threw that away with what I mentioned above, as well as the whole kids thing. And then Lucy, no, that deserved to end the way it did. Anyway, I think you could see that I don't like Bailey. And I think this opinion will only get stronger the more I rewatch this show. Moving on, I want to talk about something involving Captain Anderson. And I did gloss over this a little bit in my video that I made about her and her story, which I'll leave a link to at the end of this one as well as in the description. But the one part of her story that I didn't like was the way that it ended. Look, I think that the way she went out was great. I think killing her off the way that they did was amazing for Officer Nolan's story and to give him motivation to be a better cop. However, a counterpoint I want to make is why did they do it so damn early into the show? We only saw her for 16 episodes before she was killed off. There was so much that we never learned about her, and this is partially because the show just didn't give us enough time with her. I also think that her death would have been more impactful not only for Nolan, but also for the audience if they killed her off towards the time that they killed off Nick Armstrong, like around the end of season 2 or the beginning of season 3. The show missed the opportunity to get the audience extremely attached to this character, learning about all of her death and her backstory, and then killing her off. I love her and her story, but the timing kind of ruins it for me. I know that I've been pretty critical about some aspects of the show during this video, but I just want to reiterate that I love this show very much, and I wouldn't make videos about it if I didn't. I'm just hoping that the showrunners can fix some of these things in the next season, like the Monica Stevens plotline and the dragging of Chenford, but I guess we'll just have to see. That is everything that I hate about The Rookie. Make sure to hype up this video if you're on mobile to show me some love, and subscribe to see more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.